want to know how to negotiate a house in Colorado? Well, that's what we're talking about today, and we're starting right now. Hey everybody, I'm Barney Villa, realtor with Remax of Boulder here in Boulder, Colorado. And if this is your first time on my channel, make sure to subscribe because I post content weekly and you're not going to want to miss it. So today we're talking about how to negotiate a house in Colorado. Now, every state is different, so we're going to be specifically talking about Colorado. And in this market, we're seeing a lot of multiple offers, and especially in Boulder, we're seeing houses go anywhere from 20 to 30% over ask. So when going into negotiating, you're going to need a strategy. So here are my top 6 things that we're going to negotiate. The first thing we'll talk about when negotiating a house in Colorado is absolutely the price. So what we've seen, especially because of the low inventory, is that most houses are getting multiple offers. And especially here in Boulder, we're seeing anywhere possibly from 20 to 30% over ask. So the first thing I do when we negotiate price is actually call the other side and I talk to the seller and I ask them, how many offers do you have in? Is it 5? Is it 10? Especially in the springtime, we're going to see maybe upwards of 10 to 15, but as the fall and winter come, we'll see it cool off a little more. Maybe we'll see 2 or 3, or you might even be able to be the lucky first one in that gets it done quickly. But so different price points here have, kind of demand different negotiation techniques. So for starters, we'll just talk about a really hot price point around the $800,000 to $900,000, just under $1 million. So let's say the list price is $800,000, and I call their side and they tell me there are 5 offers in already that are considerably over ask. So the first thing we'll do is I'll talk to you about how you feel about that, because essentially you're not really overpaying, because once it appreciates, once even a year goes by, you're going to see that appreciation catch right up to whatever number that you overbid by. So let's say it's $800,000, and let's say we know it's going to be somewhere in the 850s, but we really don't know. So one of my favorite techniques to use is what we call an escalation clause. So before we get to that, I will always ask you, how comfortable do you feel at 850? Or maybe I'll ask, would you be sad if you lost it for 850? And let's say the answer is yes, you would. This is the dream house, let's go for it. So the next question I'm going to ask you is, how about 860? Would you feel sad if you lost it for 860? And I'm going to kind of keep bumping you up to maybe like 890, and then you say, no, I won't take it, I'm out at that price. Okay, so now we kind of have some wiggle room to know that 890 is your cap. So with the escalation clause, what we can do is set a cap of $890,000 and tell the seller that we will beat any other bona fide offer by, and here's where some people only do $1,000 or maybe $3,000, but I honestly don't think that's serious enough, because let's say both offers come in at 860 and you bid 850 with an escalation up to $890,000, and you said you would beat it by $1,000. It's not really going to be enough really to move the seller, especially if there are other terms involved that somebody else picked up and we didn't. So we'll get to those other terms in a second, but let's just say you bid 850 with an escalation up to $890,000, and the winning bid came in at 860, and now it's to you to say, yes, I will take it at the higher price or not. So again, that $1,000 isn't really enough for me, and especially won't be enough for the sellers. So I think it needs to be at least $5,000, maybe even enough to up to $10,000 that you would beat another offer for. But again, this is a conversation that we would have to make sure you're comfortable moving forward with these numbers. So let me try and re-explain that one more time for you. So with an escalation clause, let's say the list price is $800,000 and you want to bid $850, but you're willing to go up to $890 in order to beat any other bona fide offer. And this is language that we'll really specifically write in the contract to make sure that the sell side understands how serious you are. Now, the other option is actually to write an escalation clause with no cap on it. But again, that really just gives you the final no. To say, like, if someone comes in at 870 or 880, if you're going to beat it by another $5,000 or $10,000, you still have the opportunity to say no. Point number 2 that we're going to be negotiating is the appraisal. So let's go back to that $800,000 listing. So obviously it went over and you won at $860,000. What's also going to need to be included in the contract is what we call appraisal gap language. And this may or may not come into play once we actually have the appraisal, but the language needs to be in there to make the seller feel comfortable that you're going to go ahead with this deal, even if the property does not appraise for the price that you offered. Okay, so let's say again that listing is $800,000 and your bid was $860 and you won. So the appraisal gap language will read something like, we commit to pay the difference between, if there is a difference between the appraised value and the value that we offered. And this is going to be extremely important again for the seller because they want to know that you're going to go through with it. And there are different ways to negotiate this. We can ask to split it, we can ask to come down, but typically in a multiple offer situation, you're going to want to waive that all together. Again, to make that seller feel comfortable that we're going to move ahead. But again, this is going to be a conversation that we have way before we ever submit this offer to make sure that you are comfortable with doing that. If it does not appraise, then you will have to pay the difference in cash. The loan will not cover the gap, okay? So again, the appraisal gap language will need to be there, but it will only be needed if the appraisal doesn't come in at the price that you offered. Point number 3 that we can negotiate is the earnest money. So a lot of people think that just offering more earnest money at the beginning of the get-go is a really strong way to make an offer. Kind of. So let me explain what earnest money is. Earnest money is typically 1% of the purchase price, and upon acceptance of your offer, you typically have 3 days to submit the earnest money to the title company to be held. Now, in the end, you can use this for closing costs, you can use this towards your loan, or you can take it back in cash, whatever you want to do, you can discuss that with your lender. But this earnest money typically is 1% of the closing costs, or maybe there's a round number of $10,000 or $25,000. So offering more is good, but again, that can just go towards your down payment or the actual mortgage itself. So with it in mind, what is better is once we get through the inspection, we make the earnest money go hard right away. And what I mean by hard is non-refundable. But again, we will discuss this far before we ever submit the offer to make sure that you're comfortable with it. So again, if we make the earnest money go hard and non-refundable, I always say right after inspection, because usually we want to have inspection in the first week, so we'll know right away if you want to take the property or not. Because if we get to inspection and there's a whole bunch of stuff that you don't like or that we're not, easily negotiating with the other side, you can cancel and terminate for that reason and get your earnest money back. So by making it go hard and making it go non-refundable after the inspection, it really makes the seller feel confident that you're going to move forward with this no matter what. Point number 4 that we will negotiate is the inspection. So I never recommend just waiving inspection altogether. What's a little bit savvier is to waive your inspection objection, but to keep the inspection termination. Now, in a multiple offer situation, maybe we do take it all off the table, but I still want you to have the inspection, but you will not be able to object for that. And now, in the state of Colorado, there are a number of reasons, and it's very easy to get out of a transaction because the state protects the buy side very heavily. So regardless if we waive inspection, there are a number of reasons that you can actually back out of the contract and still get your earnest money back. But in a typical situation, where there's multiple offers and you're trying to be very competitive, I do suggest waiving the inspection termination but still going forward with the inspection just for your own peace of mind. And this is really important because again, the seller is going to look very favorably upon this if you do waive the inspection, because again, it's going to give them more confidence that you're going to go through with this transaction and not be wishy-washy kind of in the middle and try and renegotiate big numbers when they accepted the offer without an inspection. Point number 5 that we can negotiate is actually paying for the title insurance or paying for the closing costs. And now this one is also really important to the seller and pretty savvy because it actually takes money off of their plate that they would have to pay up front. And in the end, it's only a couple $1,000s anyways, but if you're contributing to that, the seller will look more favorably upon that. And one of the other advantages to paying for title insurance is that you can also select the title company. Now, not all title companies are created equal. So as we review this offer before we submit it, I can talk to you about the title company and how safe that I really feel working with them. Because I've worked with a number of title companies, and certain title companies don't do certain things very well. So I want to make sure that you're fully protected. And especially in a multiple offer situation, if you can pay for the title insurance, then we can select the title company and ensure that your property gets insured. And point number 6 that we will negotiate on the terms is a closing date. So before we ever submit the offer, again, I will call the sell side and ask them specifically, is there anything else that your seller wants more than money? And a lot of times it's an adjustment on the closing date. So with a loan, it typically takes 30 days to close. But if they want to close faster than that, or they want to close on a specific date, or say they want to close in 35 days or 37 days, we should be able to make that happen. Now, I will confirm with you, way before we ever submit this offer, but let's say they need to close on a specific Thursday or a specific Friday. If we can make that happen for them, again, the seller is going to favorably favor your offer over the others. Now, the other thing that can happen is they want a rent back. So what that means is after they close, they still need to live there maybe for a week, maybe for 30 days. And if you can be flexible with your move-in date, then again, the seller will look more favorably upon your offer. And the other thing to note with a rent back is it can happen one of two ways. One, they can pay your mortgage for the 30 days or maybe even 60 days, possibly up to 90 days, but hopefully it's shorter than that they're there. And we can actually break that down specifically day by day to make sure that you're comfortable with that. But again, in a multiple offer situation, a lot of times people do waive the first month. And this is actually something you can discuss with your lender about when your first mortgage date actually happens. So maybe there is some wiggle room for you to say, okay, I will go an extra 30 days that you can live in there before you go ahead and move in. So now that you generally understand these 6 negotiating points, when we find the house of your dreams and the one that you want to make an offer on, we will go over these 6 points in excruciating detail to make sure you have an advantage over the other offers that are coming in. And again, if we can communicate enough with the sell side that this is the dream house and this is the one you want, we can really guarantee that you will win this house. So there you have it, my top 6 points on how to negotiate a house in Colorado. If you like this video, make sure to give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, and make sure to subscribe and check out my next video on the best home inspection checklist you can use at your home inspection. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one.